The shimmering lights of Seoul's skyline disappeared as Dr. Ji-Soo Kim descended into the underground laboratory. The government facility had been her second home for the past 3 years, ever since the mysterious signal had been detected by Korea's Deep Space Array. "Another late night, Doctor." The security guard smiled as she swiped her badge. "The stars don't sleep, and neither do I," Ji-Soo replied with a tired smile. The truth was more complicated. 3 years ago, Earth's most sensitive radio telescopes had detected an unusual pattern coming from the direction of Alpha Centauri. Most of her colleagues had dismissed it as cosmic background radiation, but Ji-Soo knew better. The pattern contained mathematical sequences too precise to be natural. As she entered her private lab, she locked the door behind her. What she was about to do wasn't exactly authorized. The signal analysis had been officially discontinued 6 months ago when funding was pulled, but Ji-Soo couldn't let it go. She had copied the raw data to her personal server and continued working in secret. Her computer hummed to life, displaying the familiar waveform that had consumed her thoughts for years. Tonight was different, though. Last week, she had developed a new algorithm based on quantum linguistics rather than traditional SETI protocols. The computer had been processing the signal through this new filter for days. A soft ping alerted her that the analysis was complete. Ji-Soo's hands trembled as she opened the results. What she saw made her breath catch in her throat. Words. Actual words, translated from the alien signal. "We are the Conclave. Earth remains quarantined. Interference detected. Cleansing authorized." She read it again and again, trying to make sense of it. Quarantined. Cleansing. The implications were terrifying. As Ji-Soo dug deeper into the decoded signal, more information emerged. The Conclave appeared to be some sort of galactic governing body, comprised of dozens of advanced alien species. They had been watching Earth for centuries, deliberately keeping humans isolated from the wider galactic community. Most disturbing were references to developmental suppression protocols and technological regression initiatives. According to the signal, the Conclave had actively intervened in human history, subtly sabotaging scientific breakthroughs that might lead to faster-than-light travel or advanced quantum technologies. "This can't be right," Ji-Soo whispered to herself, but the evidence was compelling. The signal contained specific references to human innovations that had mysteriously failed or been abandoned, projects her own grandfather had worked on decades ago. A noise in the corridor outside startled her. It was after midnight. No one should be in this section of the facility. Ji-Soo quickly saved her findings to a secure drive and closed the program. The lab door slid open despite the electronic lock she had engaged. 2 men in dark suits entered, followed by a woman whose bearing suggested authority. None of them wore identification badges. "Dr. Kim," the woman said, "I'm Director Park. We need to discuss your unauthorized research." Ji-Soo's pulse quickened. "How did you know about my work?" "The project was officially terminated." Director Park smiled thinly. "The project was never terminated, Dr. Kim. Merely transferred to a different department. We've been monitoring your private initiative with great interest." "Then you know what I've found," Ji-Soo said. "The signal. It's a communication about Earth. We're being watched by something called the Conclave." The 3 visitors exchanged glances. "You've done impressive work," Director Park said, "but I'm afraid this research is now classified at the highest level. You'll be transferred to a special facility where you can continue your work under proper supervision." Ji-Soo sensed the threat beneath the polite words. "And if I refuse?" "That would be unwise," one of the men said. "National security is at stake." Something wasn't right. Ji-Soo had worked on classified projects before, and this wasn't how security protocols were implemented. A cold realization dawned on her. "You're not from the government, are you?" she asked quietly. Director Park's expression hardened. "Smart, as they said. We represent interests that transcend national boundaries. Dr. Kim, the signal you've detected was never meant for human ears." Ji-Soo glanced at her computer. The secure drive with her findings was still connected. If she could just create a distraction. "I need to use the restroom," she said suddenly. "Of course." Director Park nodded to one of the men. "Escort Dr. Kim." As they left the lab, Jisoo noticed something odd about the man beside her. In the brighter light of the hallway, his skin had a faintly bluish tint, and his movements were too fluid, too perfect. In the bathroom, Jisoo quickly sent a pre-encrypted message to her personal server, activating a program that would distribute her findings to scientific colleagues around the world. If anything happened to her, the truth would still get out. When she returned to the lab, she found Director Park examining her computer. "Your security measures are impressive," the director said. "But futile." Jisoo watched in horror as the screen flickered and her data began deleting itself. "What are you doing?" "That's years of work." "Necessary precautions," Director Park said calmly. "The Conclave maintains order in this sector of the galaxy. Primitive species like yours aren't ready for contact." The mask had slipped. Jisoo backed away. "You're one of them." "We are observers," Director Park corrected. "Earth has potential, but you're not ready. In time, perhaps. But that signal you detected was concerning. Something is changing in the galaxy, and we can't afford variables." "You've been holding us back," Jisoo accused. "All those failed projects, the scientists who gave up or died mysteriously, that was you." Director Park didn't deny it. "It's for your own protection. The galaxy is dangerous." Before Jisoo could respond, alarms blared throughout the facility. Her backup plan had worked. The security system had detected the unauthorized data deletion and triggered emergency protocols. In the momentary confusion, Jisoo grabbed the secure drive and ran. Behind her, she heard Director Park shout orders in a language no human had ever spoken. Jisoo knew she would be hunted, but she had the truth now. Somewhere safe, she would continue her work. Humanity deserved to know they weren't alone, and that their cosmic neighbors weren't all friendly. The galaxy had been watching Earth for centuries. Now, humans would start watching back. Captain Tahoe Park stood on the observation deck of the ESS Vindication, Earth's first true interstellar vessel. Through the massive viewport, the blue-white sphere of Earth grew smaller by the minute. 20 years had passed since Dr. Jisoo Kim had exposed the truth about the Galactic Conclave. 20 years of preparation, innovation, and determination. "Beautiful, isn't it?" said Chief Engineer Jun-Ho Ba, joining him at the viewport. "Never thought I'd see Earth from this distance." Tai-Ho nodded. Dr. Kim would have loved to see this moment. Jisoo Kim had become both a hero and a cautionary tale. After fleeing the underground lab that night, she had gone into hiding, distributing her findings to trusted scientists around the world. For years, most people thought she was crazy. Then the evidence began to mount. Too many technological breakthroughs suddenly hitting inexplicable roadblocks. Too many brilliant minds mysteriously losing interest in promising research. "Captain, we're ready for the jump," called Lieutenant He-Jin Kang from the bridge entrance. "All systems are green." Tai-Ho took one last look at Earth. "Let's make history." The bridge of the Vindication hummed with quiet efficiency as Tai-Ho took his command chair. 20 crew members, the best Earth had to offer, monitored stations around the circular room. The ship itself was a marvel, incorporating technology reverse-engineered from a crashed Conclave scout ship discovered in the Gobi Desert 5 years ago. "Quantum drive spooling up," reported Navigation Officer Jai Yun-Yun, her fingers dancing across her console. "Coordinates locked for the Ta City system." Tai-Ho surveyed his crew. They all knew this was likely a one-way journey. The quantum drive was experimental, and while they could theoretically return to Earth, the primary mission was to establish contact with other civilizations who might help humanity stand against the Conclave. "The drive is at full capacity, Captain," said Jun-Ho from the engineering station. Tai-Ho took a deep breath. "Execute jump." For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then reality itself appeared to fold around the ship. The viewport showed a brief, impossible kaleidoscope of light, and then darkness. "Jump complete," Jai Yun announced, her voice steady despite the historical moment. We're not at Ta City." Tae-ho frowned. "Where are we?" "Unknown, sir. No match in our stellar charts." Before Tae-ho could respond, alarm signals blared across the bridge. "Two vessels approaching," called out Sensor Officer Min Ji-choi. "Configuration unknown. They're fast." Tae-ho's training kicked in. Defensive posture. Power weapon systems, but do not target. Open communications on all frequencies. The approaching ships were unlike anything in Earth's databanks. They moved with incredible precision, their hulls gleaming with an iridescent material that seemed to shift colors as they approached. "They're hailing us," reported Communications Officer Sang-hoon Kwan. "On screen," ordered Tae-ho, straightening in his chair. The main view screen flickered to life, revealing the humanoid figure with copper-colored skin and large, multifaceted eyes. Its voice, when it spoke, was translated by the ship's computer into an oddly accented Korean. "Unidentified vessel. You have entered protected Narathi space. Identify yourselves and your purpose." Tae-ho stood, facing the screen. "I am Captain Tae-ho Park of the Earth Ship Vindication. We come in peace, seeking allies against the Galactic Conclave." The alien's multifaceted eyes widened slightly. "You openly oppose the Conclave. Your species must be either very brave or very foolish." "We were kept in the dark about galactic affairs until recently," Tae-ho explained. "The Conclave has been suppressing our technological development for centuries. We refuse to remain ignorant and helpless any longer." The alien was silent for a moment, then spoke again. "I am Commander Lissari of the Narathi Defense Force. Your arrival is unexpected. We detected your quantum signature when you emerged from jump space. Such technology should be beyond your capabilities if you are truly from Earth." "We've made rapid progress," Tae-ho said. "We had help from one of the Conclave's own vessels." This clearly surprised the alien commander. "You captured Conclave technology and successfully reverse-engineered it. This is unprecedented." "We would like to meet with your leaders," Tae-ho said. "We believe we may have common interests." After a brief pause, Commander Lissari nodded. "Follow our escort to the Narathi homeworld. But be warned, any aggressive action will be met with immediate destruction." The communication ended, and Tae-ho turned to his crew. "Well, first contact could have gone worse." "Do we trust them, Captain?" asked Security Chief Hai Jin-moon. "Not entirely," Tae-ho replied. "But we need information and potential allies. Keep weapons systems on standby, just in case." The Vindication followed the Narathi ships toward a blue-green planet orbiting a yellow star. As they approached, Tae-ho could see massive orbital structures surrounding the planet. Some appeared to be defense platforms, others possibly habitation or industrial facilities. "Their technology is far beyond ours," Jun-ho observed, examining sensor data. "But there's something odd about these readings. Many of their systems appear to be damaged, or perhaps ancient and poorly maintained." Tae-ho frowned. Could they be a civilization in decline? Before anyone could answer, Sang-hoon called out from communications. "Captain, I'm detecting thousands of transmissions from the planet and orbital structures. Our translation systems are struggling, but I'm piecing together some disturbing information." "Let's hear it," Tae-ho said. "The Narathi were once much more advanced than they are now," Sang-hoon explained. "According to what I'm gathering, they were on the verge of developing technology that would have made them equals to the Conclave several centuries ago. Then something happened, some sort of catastrophic technological failure that destroyed much of their infrastructure and killed millions." Tae-ho's eyes narrowed. "The Conclave happened to them." "It appears so," Sang-hoon confirmed. "And sir, there are references to at least a dozen other species who suffered similar setbacks when they reached certain technological thresholds." As the Vindication entered orbit around the Narathi homeworld, Tae-ho felt a mix of anger and determination. Earth wasn't alone in suffering under the Conclave's manipulation. Perhaps that shared experience could be the foundation of something powerful, an alliance of the suppressed against their oppressors. "Prepare a diplomatic team," he ordered. "It's time we learned exactly how the Conclave operates and how we can stop them." Jai-Yun looked up from her station. "Captain, do you think we can actually win against something like the Conclave? They've dominated the galaxy for who knows how long." Tai-Ho met her gaze steadily. "Every empire in history eventually falls, Lieutenant, usually because they underestimate those they oppress. Our advantage is that the Conclave still thinks humans are primitives barely worth monitoring." He looked out at the Nerathi world. "They have no idea what's coming for them." The great hall of the Nerathi High Council gleamed with polished stone and strange metals unknown to Earth. Hae-Yun Choi, the diplomatic officer of the ESS Vindication, walked carefully behind Captain Tai-Ho Park. 6 other human crew members followed them, each trying not to stare at the alien architecture or the Nerathi guards with their copper skin and multifaceted eyes. "Remember," Tai-Ho whispered to his team, "we need allies, not just information. The Nerathi have suffered under the Conclave just as Earth has." Hae-Yun nodded. As the ship's diplomatic specialist, she had spent the journey studying what little they knew about alien cultures. Nothing had prepared her for actual contact, but her training in human diplomacy would have to suffice. The Nerathi High Council consisted of 7 elders seated on elevated platforms. Their skin had a darker copper tone than the guards, and intricate patterns were etched into their exposed arms and faces. "Humans of Earth," the central elder spoke, his words translated through devices provided to the human delegation. "I am Elder Triska, head of the High Council. Your arrival is unprecedented. No species has ever sought us out after Conclave intervention." Tai-Ho stepped forward. "The Conclave believed they had suppressed us. They were wrong." "So we see," Elder Triska replied. "Yet your ship's technology suggests you are still centuries behind where you should be. The Conclave's methods are thorough." Hae-Yun studied the elder's body language. Despite the alien physiology, she detected something familiar: respect, perhaps even hope. "We come seeking an alliance," Tai-Ho said. "Earth stands against the Conclave, but we cannot fight alone." A different elder spoke, her voice higher pitched. "Fight? You speak of fighting the Conclave. Impossible. They control the major hyperspace routes, the resource-rich systems, and technologies you cannot imagine." Hae-Yun stepped forward. "Permission to address the council." The elders looked surprised, but Elder Triska nodded. "Respected elders of Nerathi." Hae-Yun began. "Humans have a long history of facing seemingly impossible odds. When powerful nations conquered weaker ones on Earth, resistance always continued. The oppressed found ways to fight back, not always with direct confrontation, but through intelligence, sabotage, and building networks of allies." She paused, letting the translation catch up. "The Conclave believes they are untouchable because they've never faced organized resistance. They pick off developing worlds one by one. But what if we stood together?" Murmurs spread through the chamber. Elder Triska leaned forward. "Your words have passion, Diplomat Hae-Yun, but the Nerathi tried to resist the Conclave 3 centuries ago. In response, they triggered a cascade failure in our planetary defense grid. 2 billion Nerathi died in a single day." The humans exchanged shocked glances. Hae-Yun felt a chill run through her body. "We understand your caution," she said, choosing her words carefully. "But consider this. The Conclave doesn't know we're here. They believe Earth is still isolated, unaware of galactic politics. That gives us an advantage they've never faced before: the element of surprise." A third elder spoke up. "What exactly do you propose, humans?" Captain Tai-Ho stepped forward again. "Information sharing, to start. We need to understand the Conclave's weaknesses, patrol patterns, communication methods. Then we can build a network of resistance among suppressed worlds, and bring the wrath of the Conclave down on all our heads, said the second elder. Heiyun noticed that Elder Triska had remained thoughtful rather than dismissive. She decided to take a risk. May I ask a personal question? Elder Triska, did you lose family in the conclave attack 3 centuries ago? The chamber went silent. For a moment, Heiyun feared she had made a terrible diplomatic error. Then Elder Triska nodded slowly. My entire lineage except for one child, my great-great-grandmother. And in those 3 centuries, has the conclave allowed your people to rebuild, to reclaim your former technological heights? No, Elder Triska admitted. They return every few decades to assess our development. Each time, any technology approaching their restricted list mysteriously fails soon after. Heiyun turned to address all the elders. This is their pattern. They don't just attack once, they keep you suppressed forever. Earth has only recently discovered this truth, but we refuse to accept it as our fate. We believe you and other suppressed species feel the same. Elder Triska stood, towering above the humans. Your courage is admirable, but words alone cannot defeat the conclave. Then help us move beyond words, Taiho said. Our quantum drive technology is promising but flawed. We jumped to your system by accident. Our intended destination was Tau Ceti. With your help, we could perfect it. The elders conferred among themselves in their native language. Finally, Elder Triska addressed the humans again. We will share information about the conclave and help improve your quantum drive. In exchange, we want full access to your ship's technology and databases. If we determine an alliance is viable, we can discuss further cooperation. Heiyun could see that Captain Taiho wasn't entirely satisfied with this cautious response, but he nodded. Agreed. We'll begin immediately. Over the next few weeks, the humans and Nerathi worked closely together. The Nerathi were stunned by humanity's rapid technological adaptation, while the humans were impressed by the Nerathi's deep understanding of quantum physics. Heiyun spent much of her time with a Nerathi historian named Melior, who had dedicated his life to secretly documenting conclave oppression. According to my research, Melior told her one day as they worked in his vast underground archive, at least 27 species have been subject to conclave suppression in this sector alone. Most never recover. Have any ever successfully resisted? Heiyun asked. Melior hesitated. There are rumors of a species called the Vash, who managed to hide their true technological level from the conclave. They pretended to comply while secretly advancing. But communication between suppressed worlds is difficult and dangerous. Heiyun leaned forward excitedly. Could you help us contact them? Perhaps, Melior said cautiously, but it would mean breaking centuries of Nerathi isolation. Many would consider it too risky. Sometimes the greatest risk is doing nothing, Heiyun replied. 3 days later, Elder Triska called an emergency meeting with the human delegation. His usually composed demeanor was visibly shaken. We've intercepted conclave communications, he said without preamble. A routine patrol detected your quantum jump signature. They don't know what caused it yet, but they're sending investigation teams to this sector. Captain Taiho's expression hardened. How long do we have? 2 weeks, perhaps less. Heiyun spoke up. Then we need to accelerate our plans. Melior has information about other species who might join us, including one that may have successfully hidden from the conclave. Elder Triska looked surprised. Melior shared the Vash rumors with you. Those are forbidden histories. Perhaps it's time for forbidden histories to come to light, Heiyun suggested. The conclave maintains power partly through isolation, keeping suppressed species from communicating with each other. After a long moment, Elder Triska nodded. You're right. The Council has voted. We will formally ally with Earth and reach out to other suppressed worlds. Together, we'll form what you humans might call a foundation for resistance. The foundation, Heiyun repeated, liking the sound of it. A foundation for a new galactic order, one built on cooperation rather than suppression. As the humans and Nerathi sealed their historic alliance, None of them could have predicted how quickly events would unfold or how fiercely the Conclave would respond when they realized what was happening. Commander Subin Kang stared at the tactical display aboard the Foundation vessel Defiance. 12 ships of the newly formed alliance, 3 human, 5 Narathi, 2 Vash, and 2 Meridian, were arranged in a defensive formation near Proxima Centauri. Intelligence indicated that the Conclave enforcement fleet would arrive within hours. "All ships report ready, Commander," said her executive officer, Da Hyun Ryu. Subin nodded, her face revealing none of the anxiety she felt. 6 months ago, she had been a security officer aboard the ESS Vindication. Now she commanded the lead vessel of the Foundation's first combat fleet. The promotion had come after the Conclave had destroyed a Narathi science station, killing everyone aboard including 2 human scientists. "The Meridian ships are requesting confirmation of battle plans," Da Hyun added. "Tell them we proceed as discussed," Subin replied. "No deviations unless I give the order." The plan was risky. Foundation intelligence had intercepted Conclave communications revealing their intent to send a punitive expedition to Earth, a cleansing action that would effectively sterilize the planet as a warning to other rebellious species. The Foundation fleet wasn't powerful enough to defeat the Conclave in direct combat, but they didn't need to win. They just needed to capture the Conclave command ship and its strategic database. "Spatial distortion detected," called out the sensor officer. "Multiple signatures. Conclave ships incoming." Subin took a deep breath. Battle stations. All ships maintain position. The view screen showed the fabric of space rippling as 18 Conclave warships materialized. They were sleek, predatory vessels with hulls that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. "They're launching fighter craft," reported the tactical officer. "Estimate 200 small attack vessels." Subin activated the fleet-wide communication channel. "This is Commander Kang. Execute Phase 1. The Foundation ships broke formation, seemingly scattering in panic. To the Conclave, it would appear that the inferior fleet was fleeing at the first sign of real opposition. In reality, each ship was moving to a precisely calculated position. "Conclave flagship is advancing," the sensor officer announced. "They're pursuing the Vindication as expected." Subin allowed herself a small smile. Captain Taeho had volunteered to act as bait, knowing the Conclave would prioritize capturing the first human ship to achieve interstellar flight. "The Vash ships are in position," Da Hyun reported. "Meridian vessels report ready." "Launch disruptor probes," Subin ordered. From the Defiance, dozens of small, unpowered devices were released into space. They appeared to be debris to sensors, but each contained a quantum field generator designed by Narathi scientists based on human theoretical work. "Probes in position. Conclave ships are passing through the field now." Subin held her breath. The entire plan hinged on this moment. Activate the field. Across the battlefield, the probes simultaneously activated, creating a quantum disruption that temporarily disabled the Conclave ship's advanced targeting systems. It wouldn't last long, perhaps 30 seconds, but that was all they needed. "All ships execute Phase 2, Subin commanded. The scattered Foundation fleet suddenly reversed course, each vessel firing specialized electromagnetic pulses at specific Conclave ships. The smaller Conclave fighters, caught in the quantum disruption, began colliding with each other as their navigation systems failed. "Conclave flagship shields at 60%, reported the tactical officer. "Their weapon systems are recalibrating." Subin stood from her command chair. "Bring us alongside the flagship. Prepare boarding teams." The Defiance accelerated toward the massive Conclave command ship, which was nearly 5 times its size. 2 Conclave escort vessels moved to intercept, but were engaged by Narathi warships. "We have a clear approach," Da Hyun announced. "Boarding shuttles ready." "Launch now," Subin ordered, strapping a combat harness over her uniform. "I'll lead the primary team." Da Hyun looked startled. "Commander, protocol dictates." "I know the protocols." Subin cut him off. But I studied the Conclave flagship schematics more thoroughly than anyone. The mission has priority over protocol. Minutes later, Su Bin led a team of 20 specialized commandos, a mix of humans, Narathi, and Vash, through the airlock of a boarding shuttle. Each member carried weapons designed specifically to counter Conclave defenses, based on information gathered from captured Conclave technology. Remember, Su Bin told the team, our objective is the central database core on Deck 7. Everything else is secondary. The shuttle shuddered as it departed the Defiance, racing toward the Conclave flagship along with 5 other boarding craft. Through the viewport, Su Bin watched as space around them erupted with weapons fire. The Foundation fleet was taking heavy losses, but they were keeping the Conclave forces occupied. Impact in 5 seconds, called the pilot. Brace. The shuttle crashed through a weakened section of the Conclave ship's hull, explosive bolts blasting the airlock door outward. Su Bin led her team through the breach, immediately encountering resistance from Conclave security drones. Move forward, she shouted over the sound of weapons fire. Jun Seo, Tarek, clear that corridor. The mixed species team fought with remarkable coordination. The Vash were particularly effective, their natural ability to perceive quantum fluctuations allowing them to predict the movements of the Conclave defense systems. Su Bin consulted the schematic displayed on her tactical visor. This way to the central lift shaft. They battled through 3 decks, losing 4 team members to Conclave defenses. When they reached the massive doors protecting the database core, Su Bin deployed a specialized device created by Narathi engineers. Quantum lockbreaker in place, she reported over the comm. All teams, report status. Team 2 is engaging hostiles on Deck 5, came the response. Heavy resistance. Team 3 has secured the auxiliary power core, standing by to initiate shutdown on your command. Su Bin nodded to her remaining team members. Prepare for entry. Once we're inside, we'll have 3 minutes before their security systems adapt. The quantum lockbreaker pulsed once, and the massive doors slid open. Inside was a chamber unlike anything Su Bin had seen before, a swirling matrix of light and energy that somehow held the accumulated knowledge of the Conclave. Begin the data extraction, she ordered a Vash specialist named Keeler. Everyone else, defensive positions. As Keeler connected their extraction device to the database, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. The Conclave had realized their true objective. Commander, Dahyun's voice came over the comm. Conclave reinforcements are arriving. The fleet can't hold much longer. Almost there, Su Bin replied, watching the progress indicator on Keeler's device. 90 seconds more. Suddenly, the chamber's inner door opened, revealing 3 tall figures. Unlike the maintenance drones they'd encountered so far, these were actual Conclave members, tall, ethereal beings with translucent skin that shifted colors as they moved. Abomination. One of them spoke, the translation coming through Su Bin's comm unit. You cannot comprehend the forces you are tampering with. Su Bin stepped forward, weapon raised. We understand perfectly. You've kept us suppressed, isolated, afraid. That ends today. The Conclave beings raised their hands, energy gathering around them. Su Bin and her team opened fire, but the energy shields around the Conclave members absorbed most of the impacts. Extraction complete, Keeler shouted. Su Bin made a split-second decision. All teams, fall back to extraction points. Keeler with me. As they retreated, the Conclave beings pursued, their movement unnaturally swift. One of them caught a human team member, touching his forehead. The man collapsed instantly. Su Bin and Keeler reached the shuttle just as the Conclave beings rounded the corner. As the airlock began to close, Su Bin fired one last shot, catching a Conclave member in what appeared to be a sensory apparatus. The being recoiled, giving them the seconds they needed to seal the shuttle. All teams away, Dahyun reported as their shuttle blasted clear of the flagship, transmitting database contents to all Foundation vessels now. As the shuttle raced back toward the Defiance, Su Bin looked out at the battle. Several Foundation ships were destroyed or crippled, but they had accomplished their mission. The Conclave's strategic database, containing centuries of suppression tactics, patrol routes, and most importantly, direct evidence of their manipulation, was now in Foundation hands. "Send one final message to all ships," Subin ordered. "Mission accomplished. Fall back to rendezvous point." The battle wasn't a victory in conventional terms, but it was something far more important. It was the beginning of the end for Conclave dominance. The grand hall of the former Conclave headquarters on Centaurus Prime buzzed with tension and anticipation. Representatives from over 1,000 worlds filled the massive chamber, their varied forms creating a tapestry of colors, shapes, and sizes. At the center stood a circular table where the Terran Accords would be signed, a new galactic constitution crafted over 3 years of difficult negotiations and continued conflict. Ambassador Min Ho-yoon adjusted his formal attire as he prepared to address the assembly. As the son of Dr. Ji-soo Kim, the scientist who had first uncovered the Conclave's existence, Min Ho felt the weight of history on his shoulders. His mother had not lived to see this day, having died during a Conclave attack on the lunar colony 2 years earlier. "Are you ready?" asked Lyra, the Narathi delegate who had become one of Min Ho's closest allies. Her copper skin gleamed under the chamber's lights. "As ready as I'll ever be," Min Ho replied. "3 years ago, I was a cultural historian. Now I'm helping rewrite galactic governance. Your perspective as a historian is what made you the right choice," Lyra said. "You understand that what we do today will echo for generations." A chime sounded, signaling the start of the ceremony. The chamber fell silent as Min Ho approached the central podium. Before him sat the 7 remaining members of the Conclave High Council, beings whose species had dominated galactic politics for over 2,000 years. Their once proud postures were now subdued, their power broken by the coalition of formerly suppressed worlds. "Delegates of the galaxy," Min Ho began, his voice carrying through the hall's perfect acoustics. 3 years ago, humanity discovered that we were not alone in the universe, and that our development had been deliberately stunted by the Conclave. We were angry. We wanted justice, perhaps even revenge. He paused, looking across the diverse assembly. But as we connected with the Narathi, the Vash, the Meridians, and dozens of other species who suffered similar fates, we realized something important. The greatest injustice wasn't what was done to any single world. It was the denial of our collective potential. The Conclave didn't just hold back individual species. They prevented an entire galaxy from flourishing through cooperation and shared knowledge. Min Ho turned to face the Conclave representatives directly. The Battle of Proxima Centauri changed everything. When Commander Subin Kang captured the Conclave's strategic database, she revealed centuries of systematic suppression affecting hundreds of worlds. Species that might have shared their unique perspectives and innovations were instead kept isolated and afraid. The Conclave claimed this was for our protection, that we weren't ready for the responsibilities of advanced technology or interstellar politics. One of the Conclave representatives, Elder Vexer, spoke in a melodious voice that required no translation. "We stand by our judgment," he said. "History has shown that unrestricted technological advancement leads to catastrophe. We have prevented countless wars of extinction." Min Ho had expected this response. "Perhaps, but you made this decision for all of us, without our knowledge or consent. And in doing so, you denied us the opportunity to learn from each other's mistakes, to grow together rather than in isolation." He turned back to the assembly. "The Terran Accords represent a new path forward, not one of dominance by any single group, but of true cooperation. No civilization will ever again be denied its rightful place among the stars. No technology will be suppressed simply because it might challenge the status quo. And most importantly, no species will make decisions for others without their representation and consent." Min Ho gestured to a young woman seated among the human delegation. "My cousin, Jaewon Kim, carries a data crystal containing the complete, unaltered Conclave database. Today, this information will be made available to all signatories of the Accords, the full history of our galaxy, including the Conclave's manipulations and the technologies they kept from us. A murmur ran through the crowd. Many had suspected that humans might keep the database's secrets for themselves, using the information to become the new dominant power. Some will ask why we would share such valuable information. Minho continued. The answer is simple, because the old way of hoarding knowledge led us here, to suppression, fear, and stagnation. The new galactic order will be built on transparency and trust. Minho invited representatives from each major coalition species to join him at the central table: Narathi, Vash, Meridian, and a dozen others. Together with the Conclave representatives, they would sign the document that would reshape galactic governance. Elder Vexer spoke again as he approached the table. You believe you're creating something better, Ambassador Yoon. But I wonder if you've considered the consequences. There are threats in this galaxy that your species has never encountered. Threats the Conclave has contained for millennia. Minho met the ancient being's gaze. Then help us prepare for them as allies, not as subjects. Your knowledge and experience will be valued in the new Council of Worlds, but as equals, not rulers. The signing ceremony proceeded solemnly, each representative adding their mark to the Accords. When it was Minho's turn, he thought of his mother and her discovery that had started this journey. He thought of Captain Tahoe Park and the crew of the Vindication who had made first contact with the Narathi. He thought of Commander Subin Kang, now Admiral Kang, who had led the daring raid that changed the course of the conflict. As Minho signed the document, a sense of profound change swept through the chamber. For the first time in thousands of years, the galaxy's fate wouldn't be decided by a small group of self-appointed guardians, but by a diverse council representing all spacefaring civilizations. After the ceremony, Minho found himself face to face with Elder Vexer in a quiet corner of the reception hall. You've created something remarkable, human, the Conclave Elder admitted. Though I still have my doubts about its longevity. All systems evolve or die, Minho replied. The Conclave's mistake was trying to prevent evolution. Perhaps, Vexer said, or perhaps we simply underestimated certain species, particularly yours. Minho smiled slightly. That was your fatal error. You mistook our patience for weakness. A mistake we won't make again, Vexer said, though I wonder if you truly understand what you've unleashed. The technologies in our database, some were restricted for good reason. Then explain those reasons to the Council, Minho suggested. Convince with evidence and logic, not with suppression and fear. As Elder Vexer moved away, Minho was joined by Admiral Subin Kang, her uniform adorned with the new emblem of the Foundation Fleet. Congratulations, Ambassador, she said. Dr. Kim would be proud. Minho nodded. I hope so. But our work is just beginning. The Accords are signed, but building this new galactic community will take generations. Subin looked out at the diverse gathering, former enemies now cautiously working together. The Conclave ruled for thousands of years by keeping us afraid and separate. They never imagined we could unite. That was their greatest miscalculation, Minho agreed. They didn't realize that when humans, or any species, are pushed too far, we don't just fight back. We change the rules entirely. As the celebration continued around them, the representatives of 1,000 worlds began the long process of healing ancient wounds and building new connections. The galaxy would never be the same, and that was precisely the point.